I'll tilt it up a little so your head's not completely cropped.
Sorry, I'm starting to go bald, so like this will make it look like it's all the way.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about adjusting there.
Yeah. There you go.
And hopefully the mic is picking up the right one. I think so. See.
Everybody listening, if you can hear us, put a comment in the chat.
This is gonna be difficult. You know what? I was gonna say I could probably with my phone. Can you hear my phone right there? That's how we'll do it.
Which phone is yours? Charging one?
Yeah, either one works.
You have multiple phones in use.
I do. I'm hardcore like that. I don't know if I can do it from my account.
Is one of your phones for like sex stuff, and the other one's
Yeah,
like your normal phone?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like to keep it separated. You know what? Let's live on the edge here. Fly by the seat of our pants. By the seat of our flesh-colored pants. Hello. Welcome back. This is the other podcast. I read that line for line. I didn't even read that word for word. That just kind of rolled off the tongue.
We script our entire show. We just read.
We've actually got somebody standing behind the camera with, what's that say? Yeah. What are those?
Cue cards.
Cue cards, yes. Cue cards.
Because they cue you on what to say.
That makes sense. Yeah. Spelled
I
Q.
figured that out.
Yeah. You're a teacher. You should be able to figure out that kind of stuff. So the school system is doing well. I am Andre. And
I am Pat.
And again, this is the other podcast. I was going to say this is just a show, but it is just a show. That really has just become the description of this show, which is the other podcast.
Can I briefly give for people that may have missed it on the last podcast where our name came from?
Cool. Can I steal from Wayne's World?
So for those of you who may have missed it, we had a really hard time settling on a name because our first name, Just a Show, turns out we should have done a little more research and it was already claimed. So after deliberating, going through many different names, we settled on the other podcast. And this name comes from when we were in college, and Andre and I were in the same dorm in college. And our freshman year, there was another Pat in our dorm with us, and some of our female friends were having a conversation one day, and I was involved in that conversation. And somebody mentioned Pat, and someone said, "Oh, which one?" And they said, "Hot Pat." And so I, after that, became the other Pat, also known as not Hot Pat, but the other Pat I thought was a little more.
To be clear, you were not Hot Pat.
They didn't say I was not Hot Pat. They just said I'm not Hot Pat. So I'm the other Pat. So anyway, there are sexier podcasts out there, but we are not those sexy podcasts, which doesn't mean we're not sexy, but we are the other podcast.
Yes, and being sexy and being a sexy podcast, I think, are two different things.
Yes.
I think we need to
make
that line. I mean, what are some sexy podcasts in your mind? Not sexy podcast hosts, but sexy podcasts.
Let's see. The only podcasts I listen to are teaching podcasts and fantasy football podcasts, so that probably limits it. I listen to a little bit of Smart List because my wife is a big fan.
Smart. What's that?
That is Jason Bateman. And do you know that one?
Yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, so Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and Sean Hayes. Yep. They started during the pandemic. So that was...
Oh, did it start then?
Yep.
I feel like.
And then it turned into a huge moneymaker for them.
Yeah, I'm sure
it picked up, and
they were probably struggling beforehand.
Yep.
With
yes, they needed that financial windfall, so it was really good. All their careers were really suffering.
That Ozark money only goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, very nice. So yeah, that's this show. We sometimes have guests with us. We have had guests with us once so far. I have hosted this format of podcasts, but usually with somebody other than Pat sometimes. So if you're picking this up on the YouTube channel and you're like, well, why isn't Pat in this one? And who's this other person? That's just because Pat has more of a life than I do. And I enjoy recording and talking to some of my other friends and stuff too. So, but typically this is what we had talked about, doing a podcast and just to have conversations. I think the original idea was just to, get other people on and
just talk.
Get people to know. So next week, for sure, unless he cancels on us, Bubba will be here. I promised that last week, not for this week, but he said he's down.
You're just building the anticipation. All the people at home listening are like,
Who's
Bubba's coming. Bubba is coming.
Bubba
That was very unintentional. If we were not live, we would strike that from.
All right. So what's on your mind today, Pat?
One thing that was on my mind today was not Bubba coming, but it was Bubba being a guest on our podcast. And I actually had in my head, and this is literally all day long, I was thinking this morning, we need like a good song. Like if we get our production level up there, we should start having like little tunes or things to like welcome some of our guests. And so I was thinking like Bubba songs. And for some reason, all in my head all day was taking Danzig's Mother and turning it into Bubba. And I was like, you don't even really need to change the lyrics.
No.
It's gonna be like, gonna take your daughter out tonight, gonna show her my world.
Yeah.
Like that goes along with, well, maybe not Bubba now.
Yeah.
So he's a good family man now, but.
Well, I don't think he uses the name Bubba anymore. So,
but he's Bubba now.
Yes. Well, what I mean by that is we could certainly use that because he's not really Bubba anymore. He's now the name I'm not going to use yet until he comes on the show. And
we can update it for like his leg. We'd be like, I don't know, like if you want to go picking with me, I can show you what it's like.
Yeah. We'll
find antiques, or I don't know, like.
I don't think there are many hardcore antique metal songs out there.
Yep.
Although we're referring to the song Mother by Danzig, for anybody who doesn't know. Would you consider Danzig's Mother a hardcore metal song, or just metal, or just hard rock?
Yeah, probably not hardcore metal.
No.
I don't know.
We talk about music a lot on this.
I've heard, I think I've heard that Danzig's like can be pretty like crazy backstage and stuff. Like,
I feel like
I saw something about that.
Well, what's his name? Something Danzig, Rob Nike.
I don't remember.
Long hair.
He's like
Danzig.
Madonna. He's just Danzig.
He's just Danzig. He was part of the Misfits before.
See, I did not know he was part of the Misfits. Okay,
that's a punk band.
That's cool.
So,
and he's got to be, I don't know how old he is now, but he's certainly older than us, quite a bit older than us.
Yeah.
So he is writing like, hardcore songs about antiquing. That's something old people like to do, or older people. I don't want Danzig coming over and beating me up because I call him old.
He's coming for you.
Yep. So anyway, Bubba will be coming on. Maybe next time.
Next week, yeah. He asked if we're going to be recording on the 1st. So I said, I don't see why we won't be.
Yeah, I can do that.
So yeah,
I'll be here.
So Danzig's on your mind, or antiquing, or songs about Bubba. I just kind of morphed it into. That makes me think we've done a lot of parody songs over the course of our existence living together. We did live together for a little bit, but knowing each other. Yeah. Even going back to high school, I continuously, it pops into my head, Breakfast at Audrey's House. Do you remember that song?
Yes.
That was a parody of Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah.
Which was very clever because we would go over to our friend Audrey's house and at breakfast times in the morning. And I don't know if we actually ever ate there, but in the song, it was, Breakfast at Audrey's house, and we brought in cereal names.
I have a habit of walking around singing parody songs at my house. Like I do it pretty much all the time.
Off the cuff.
Yeah, just make them up. So it's kind of like a talent I have. My dad, I think, used to do the same thing. So it must be like an inherited thing. So I kind of like to think of myself as like the Weird Al who has no musical ability. Like I could not write my own song. I could not play any instruments, but I could come up with some good lyrics to songs.
Well, Extra Medium has to come to life then.
Yeah, all right.
I
That could
really-
be our band. That'd be cool.
It's our house band.
Yeah.
Extra Medium. Well, we got to get Andrea on the.
Yep.
Is there a cool name for a clarinet?
A cool name for a clarinet?
Yeah.
Wait.
Like, well, saxophone is the sax.
Oh,
Or they call it the horn. I
right. So is
suppose.
it like the clary, the
Mm.
net?
The net? Ooh, hopping on the net. The wood net.
Yeah.
No.
But we had a little tradition for a while at school, and it's super corny, but we would write parodies of songs that had to do with like reading and things like that to like and make music videos. And in my head, they were always going to be like super cool, but really they're like 50-year-old women trying to like,
I read
rap
that.
or, dance or whatever. So
I have seen one cool one. I don't know if it was from your school, but
Probably
it
not.
was some guy rapping about math,
yep.
and he said he was a teacher. Is that where you guys got inspired?
Yeah, it's certainly not an original concept.
Yeah.
It's been done, but
Yeah.
I always enjoyed that. Anyway,
Yeah, what's been on my mind? Well, all that music stuff is just like stuck in my mind now. It makes me think I do the same thing. I haven't done it as much anymore, and I think it's because my kids are typically in their rooms playing video games.
Mhm.
Like we're all kind of in separate parts of
Yeah.
the house now, just with age and interests. But I used to do the same thing, just like sing about the things I was doing. But I wouldn't necessarily make a parody of the song. I would
Yeah.
just make my own song. And
Yeah. See, I don't have the original music ability. It's just taking.
it's in there, man. Just gotta hit the heart.
No, I mean, if you remember back when like we were in school, literally have no music.
You played the
ability.
triangle, didn't you?
I would just take something and like whack on it so that I could hang out with you guys at like pep band and
That's
stuff.
rhythm.
Mhm.
That's rhythm.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Oh no, there was no rhythm involved. It was just me banging or taking Genesis trombone and making obnoxious sounds with it. So,
making noises.
Yeah.
Were you in percussion in middle school?
I was in percussion in middle school, and I was terrible at it. Like I could not like keep a beat.
Mhm.
And I remember there was some song, I can't remember what year it was, one of the years we were in concert band. And the big thing was that every drummer had to take a turn on the bass drum.
Mhm.
And so I had a song that had like this really big, like, the bass was like heavily featured on it, the bass drum. And I could not like play it correctly.
Mhm.
And so I remember during practice, band class, they would constantly be stopping and trying to correct me. And somebody, the guy with whoever the assistant was would be sitting there like pounding it with me, and I just couldn't do it. And it came time and I kept trying to say like, I really can't do this song. Like you should put somebody else on it. And they wouldn't do it. And so for the concert, I totally skipped out and said I was sick and didn't show up. And I think the teacher, whoever had to do it for me. Not my proudest moment, but it was not going to work.
So as a teacher, do you ever, how do you feel about when you have kids not be able to succeed? Do you feel as a failure yourself, or?
Not necessarily. I think, yes, I would say to some extent, yeah, you take that personally, but we have a lot of kids with a lot of different, at a lot of different places with things, and you do the best you can. And, we have a lot of different systems in place. So if a kid's not doing well, hopefully I'm going to recognize it, give them extra instruction, or get them to, into an intervention program or something that can help them. So, But yeah, you do somewhat take it personally. But the music, I don't know. I guess they say, right, that like, if you have a growth mindset, you can learn to do anything. But I also believe like some people have musical ability and some people don't have rhythm. And so like, I don't think I would take that one personally if I was the music teacher, because like I just literally don't have like I can't keep a beat to save my life. So
I don't know. I mean, they worked with you really hard. I feel like that would suck even more as a teacher, where you're having to replace the student,
Yes.
and like all the parents are just looking at them.
well,
saying,
unfortunately, my kids I don't also have to put on a stage and be
Right.
like perform in front of an audience, show them how you can divide those numbers.
Wouldn't that be awful? To,
That's
like,
a whole
have to
nother
put,
level
like,
of
kids have to read it. Like, all right, reading concert or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it's bad enough all the assessments that we have to give kids, and knowing like I have to give this kid this assessment, and it's going to be really hard for them. But then if it was like, and now your parents and everybody else's parents are all going to stare at you doing it, yeah, that'd be
Right.
pretty awful.
It's like kind of like art shows, which I didn't like. So I was never good at art,
Mhm.
and I'm still not good at art, like drawing and stuff. Although I have had, I got to show you a drawing after the fact, but it was always just difficult for me. Like
Yeah.
spatial things and seeing things are hard for me.
Mhm.
Like Candy just, her mind's blown. I think every time I'm like, I think that'll fit in there. And she's like, no, I don't know why you think that something that is clearly twice the size of that space you're trying to put it is. And in my head, it's fine.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just optimism. I don't know. But so like drawing and stuff, I was never able to do. And I remember probably my best piece of artwork was, or at least that I was the most proud of. We had to do some sort of chalk on like a black paper or whatever. And I don't remember what exactly the assignment was, but I was big into Elvis for whatever reason. Until I made an Elvis sign with a picture of a peanut butter and banana sandwich, and I was pretty proud of it. The teacher was just like, okay, whatever. And it sucked because I was friends with a lot of really good artists too. So they'd be like, this is okay. So they'd have the art, but my point is like, you got your art shows and stuff, and it's like,
you have to have something on display.
Yeah, I don't want this on display at all. I mean, I tried my best, but I don't have to worry about that anymore. So, and what I do put out for art now is like, whatever. I don't care if you like it or not.
That's right.
So on to our, let's use the right mouse. Back to our segments. I suppose, these will be, we have later on in the list discussing segment ideas. And I guess this is our outline is our basis for that right now. So revisit last week. Do you have a cool theme song for revisit last week?
No.
I
mean, have to be a parody of somebody else's song, but I didn't know I was going to have to do it on the spot. So
revisit last week because it was sweet.
Okay,
we'll work on it. That's not great. So Bat Dance.
This is 3 weeks in a row that Bat Dance. Who would have thought that Bat Dance would be featured 3 weeks in a row on our podcast?
Too bad Prince isn't still alive. He'd be like Googling himself. Like, what is he? These guys are amazing.
Or we could do what we're doing with Bubba and just be like, next week to talk about Bat Dance, we're gonna have Prince on, and then just keep pushing it back. We're like, oh, Prince couldn't make it.
There's a lot of people that probably don't know Prince is dead already. So
we could say that.
Drive up the ratings. I will say I've looked at the analytics and we've got 28 unique listeners to this channel.
And they're not just all you doing different accounts and then coming in.
No, I only account for 6 of those.
Oh, okay.
So, but 28 and then 47 views or something. This was yesterday. Who knows? This could be 10 times more today.
Do we have any comments at all?
I believe CC is Bubba.
Yeah.
There's a hint as to what his name may be. And I replied to one. So we have 3 comments.
And Bubba's comment was, this really sucks. This is the worst podcast.
No, he really likes the podcast.
Yes, he did reach out to me and told me that he thought
he did ask for your number. So I was hoping it was going to be to praise you as opposed to I don't know.
sending me pictures, unsolicited pictures of his genitalia. But if that's what it was for, that'd be really awkward.
That would have been awkward. I'm really sorry. I usually have a standard of not giving out people's
I
numbers.
didn't know Bubba felt that way about me, but okay.
I figured it was safe. But yeah, and one of the most viewed episodes was, I think, the first one that we did here. I can't remember what I called it, but I was impressed. I was like, I wasn't sure if it was going to be one of the ones, because I interviewed or had a conversation with this guy, Brandon Belicio, and he's got like a big following in his own circle. So I thought maybe that would be the one, but it wasn't.
Cool.
But yeah, it was kind of cool.
All right, so Bat Dance.
Bat Dance. I listened to it again because I had
the song or the incomplete soundtrack.
I started listening to the complete soundtrack.
Okay.
Started off with Bat Dance.
Okay. Which is actually the last song on the album.
Not if you're on Spotify.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I so first of all, I always replaced funk with the bad word, and I just thought that was a song. Which,
no.
Yeah.
It's really funk.
And
I thought about correcting you last week, and I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, you were right.
But it's explicit. It does say that it has explicit lyrics.
Why is it explicit? I
don't know.
Because that
because he wants to rock Vicky Vale's body.
Oh, that would make sense. A little sexually suggestive. But yeah, I really enjoyed listening to it again, and it was really cool because it was like just the way it's done. If you haven't heard Bat Dance, listen to Bat Dance. But it's just all the sound cuts, like you were talking about, like all the sound cuts from the movies, and that's basically the whole song, and it's just really, really well.
And then, like 3/4 of the way in, Prince starts like being like, "Ooh yeah, ooh yeah,
rock that body."
Yeah. When I was listening to it after having not listened to it for a long time, I was just thinking like, this sounds like something obviously way better, but it sounds like something like we might have done back in high school, like take clips from a movie or something and turn it into like a song or something like that. So
I thought the same thing, but I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to be like, yeah, we're like Prince basically.
Right. It would not have been as good as Prince.
Maybe it would have. Who knows?
Yeah. And I was thinking that because where we got on this was we were talking about the best like song that was written for a movie, and I'm not sure really I would necessarily argue it's the best, but I would certainly say it might be my favorite song that was created for a movie. It's definitely different than anything else, right? Like I can't think of other songs that are similar where it's basically quotes from the movie making up the entire.
Yeah, whatever your criteria is for best song for a movie, that would certainly change that. I mean, if my criteria is, do you think of the movie when you hear the song? Then yes, Bat Dance,
absolutely,
bar none, it wins.
You know what movie it's from,
exactly, or Team America.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah,
and that one does not say funk. And then, so with the rest of that soundtrack, though, you had said Prince did the whole thing, and I was like, wasn't there like an orchestra? And Danny Elfman did like the music part, like that.
Okay.
And whatever other orchestral.
Yes,
music on there. And that's what I was trying to think of. I couldn't remember because I was like, wasn't there like a.
But there is an album that is all Prince.
Right.
And it's,
Yeah, unless you're on Spotify, and then
they mix in the score with the.
Yeah. Spotify bastardizing everything.
Well, I'm glad that it held up for you, and it was as good as I was.
It certainly did. Maybe next week we won't talk about it.
Yes. Or maybe Prince will be on and we won't talk about it.
Stay tuned. You've got this one here.
So, we passed along this book. This is I Drink for a Reason by David Cross. You gave it to me. You had recently read it, and I read it this week. So I thought, maybe revisiting it just briefly about what were some of our takeaways, or what did we like or not like about it, or just thoughts in general. My number one thought after reading it is I totally think we should watch what's the Homer and Eddie.
Mhm.
That is a movie that Jim Belushi and Whoopi Goldberg did back in, I think, the late 80s. And he talks about it in the book. And because, as you said last week, he's not a big fan of Jim Belushi and the Belush. And anyway, so he said it's unintentionally hilarious. So that I really enjoy those kind of movies. So I
Yeah.
thought maybe that'd be a good future episode is to watch that movie. You can rent it for $4 on Prime, and there's some other free way to watch it on one of those, not Pluto, but one of the other like
Tubi
free
or something.
Tubi or something like that. So anyway, that was one of my thoughts about it.
I'm definitely have to watch it because I actually had. I was gonna watch it wasn't Homer and Eddie. It was the other movie you mentioned, the one where he's in the casino, the one that he was.
Oh yeah, the one they made.
And
Yeah,
I looked that up, and I would have had to rent it, and I was like, I don't really want to rent it. So maybe I'll throw in that cash for Homer and Eddie.
I thought a lot about, like, I wonder what David Cross is like to meet in person.
Mhm.
Like, my guess, so he doesn't like Larry the Cable Guy. I think there's a variety of reasons for that. One is, even though he says it's not particularly the reason why, I think he probably doesn't like Larry the Cable Guy's audience.
Mhm.
Even he said that was not the primary reason he doesn't like him, but I think it had to do with authenticity, and that he thinks Larry the Cable Guy is playing up to this crowd and acting in a way, and kind of lowering himself to play to this crowd, and also monetizing the whole situation, making charging a ton of money, but at the same time railing on, I'm just this redneck kind of guy, and also that he's racist and some of those things as well, which I think is a fair criticism. So then I was thinking, okay, so is David Cross, is he genuine? Is he like the person that he is in this book or in his comedy routines? I think he did mention once that he kind of plays a character a little bit in doing things, but I also get the idea that he probably is much more genuine. I think the kind of things he'd say in this book are the same kind of things he'd say to your face if you were, what do you think about him?
I think, I think I'd probably agree, because certainly any comedian, once you get that public profile and I shouldn't say that. I think a lot of comedians, depending on the type of comedian you are, once you get that public profile, it's hard to, with a certain amount of fame. I'm not a comedian. I don't know a lot of comedians. This is just me guessing.
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain amount of fame, there's an expectation of what you're supposed to be acting like. And I think as a person, not, having a reputation of sorts amongst a group of friends or whatever, I know personally in the past, I've tried to be a certain person in certain situations.
Yeah.
I talked about that a while ago. I had a conversation with my wife when I was slowing down on drinking. I used to drink a lot more than I do now. And back in college and stuff, I would get drunk all the time. And I have a lot of friends still today that our time spent together mostly was being drunk.
Yeah.
And so I would act a certain way being drunk versus a certain way when I'm sober. Obviously less inhibited and less clothing. And so, but as I stopped drinking and like trying to hang out with some of those friends again, who I didn't necessarily have a closer relationship like with outside of, it was hard for me because I felt like I'm not the same person, and like that's not who they want
you to be. Yeah.
And that was all in my head.
Right.
Like, I've gotten over that, but at that time I had that thought. So I think for somebody who's a public figure, comedian or whatever, that is likely kind of that same idea where they have this expectation. You meet somebody, you don't want to disappoint them. And it's not even just because you're possibly going to lose a fan or something in their case.
Yeah.
But, there's that personal level. Like, people want to be liked. I haven't met somebody who doesn't want to be liked. Maybe Charles Bukowski, the poet. Maybe he didn't want to be liked. But other than that, like that's an extreme. And I don't know that. Maybe he did that in order to be liked, because he certainly has a following. Had a following. He's dead, right? It's got to be.
I have no idea.
Do you know who he is?
No.
Okay. Look him up.
Okay.
But yeah, if I got the name right, I believe it's Charles Bukowski. Anyway, but yeah, that's my thought on it. I think he's probably pretty German. He's got a podcast. I've seen one episode of it. He was interviewing Maynard, the lead singer of Tool.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't remember his last name, but I wanted to say Maynard Ferguson. It's not Maynard Ferguson.
Not Maynard Ferguson.
But yeah, that's my thought on it.
I think that's probably pretty accurate. I don't mean necessarily that he's like going on these big rants and stuff all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure his energy level is not quite what you expect there, but I think he probably is not shy about sharing his, opinion on things. I think he probably, what he says in his act are probably truly represents some of his thinking about the world, maybe playing it up for satirical purposes and things like that. But I don't know. And it's interesting. I find myself agreeing with a lot of his thoughts on things, and there's certainly things I don't necessarily agree with. And I thought it was an interesting read. One of the things I was thinking about too, because he does say in there, like, I come across as being pretty, I don't want to say entitled, but like, I don't know, kind of like I can be kind of like a dick, or I like a know-it-all or whatever. And so he, certainly recognizes that. And it just, that I think is kind of resonated with me, because I think I do that a lot too, where I think I'm at a point where I recognize a lot of my faults and I vocalize them. Like, my wife and I always joke around about how I'm the much harder one to live with in our relationship, and, things like that. And so I was just thinking about, like, so if you're like him and you're saying, I know I come across as a know-it-all because I kind of am. And, does that in any way make it better? Like, I guess there's different levels of it. If you're like, I recognize that I'm a pedophile. Well, certainly that's not, or, I'm a abuser or whatever. Like, it doesn't make it okay, but
right. I feel like, have we sound effects or something? That's where I put like the needle scratch when you went there.
Yeah, that's probably.
No, I mean, no, I get your point though. And I do the same thing. You go to extremes, and that's to prove,
a point.
To have a conversation.
Right.
And I think, like, do you write, or have you written journals or anything like that?
I do not do any writing. No.
So I've got tons of journals around and stuff. That's not to say that they're all full. Yeah. I just like write in a journal. I maybe get 3 pages in, and then I buy another.
I was gonna say you start something and then don't finish it.
I'm a completionist at heart. I want to be a completionist, but I've got a lot of journals to finish. But
you have a lot going on. I think that's more the thing, is that you have a lot of interests and a lot of thoughts and stuff. And so
I think that's probably more it. I jump around a lot. Call me House of Pain. Yeah. But so when I write, I'll write a lot of the stuff that's in my head, and stuff that I wouldn't say. Yeah. And some of it is stuff that I don't necessarily mean, or I mean, obviously I mean it, but it's stuff that I just want to get out. Whether it be fantasies or just like venting. If I can't vent to somebody else, or I don't feel comfortable venting to somebody else, I'll say horrible things or whatever. And I'm like, oh God, I hope nobody sees this. But at the same time, I go through stages where I'm like, I got to burn all my notebooks just in case. Like, I don't want to
see this. I don't want to die and have my kids read it.
Like, I started writing one of the last notebooks I was writing in. writing in cursive. I was really testing out writing in cursive because I wanted to get back into writing in cursive. And when I first started doing it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot how to write in cursive. They don't teach it in school anymore.
I know. I was gonna say it's kind of like a secret code. That way, your kids can't read it because nobody knows how to read.
And that's the thing. Like as I was writing at the dinner table, and one of the boys came down, he's like, I can't read that at all. It's like code. I was like, yep, better learn how to read cursive if you want to know what I'm writing. And but
if only it was that simple during like World War II or something.
They did it again. We'll never solve this cipher.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I do want. So I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I just got to burn it all. But at the same time, and similar to what I'm doing with these recordings and stuff, I also want to have something for my kids.
Yeah.
Like when I get older,
yeah.
for them to be able to say, oh, this is what my dad was doing or whatever, or what was on his mind at least. And when they read my notebooks, I hope I'm dead.
God, he was a filthy, perverted.
Oh my God.
It's just all like your kinky sexual fantasy.
He slept across the room.
Actually, that's actually funny you're saying that because so one of our traditions for our birthday, or for our anniversary and birthdays too, and Mother's Day and everything is we make homemade cards. I think I might have mentioned something about that last time, but like I always have to make a fake card and then like the real card because the real cards are like really filthy, but like in a funny way. So like for the one I gave Andrew for our anniversary last week, it was Judy and BJ from the Righteous Gemstones. Do you watch that show at all?
I've seen
Okay,
it.
so anyway, there are two characters on there, and one of the things that Judy's known for is saying like really filthy sort of things, but she's sort of like a bit juvenile, like she's kind of like repressed or something. Like she grew up in this very religious family, but the things she says are like really filthy. So anyway, I was putting some of my favorite quotes from that about like the two of them. But I'm like, I can't let my kids see this, but they know I make cards for their mom. So I have to do like fake cards. But anyway, they're all, Andrea saves every card I've ever made. And so I keep thinking about how someday our kids are going to like go through the drawer and pull these out. And it's going to be like this horrible, filthy stuff. Again, usually quotes from like movies or, things. But anyway, so that just made me think of that.
I think with your kids, you're priming them well though. Like you guys are not like, I'm not saying that you're absolutely filthy around them. I'm saying like you guys aren't like toning a lot down in front of them. So they kind of know what to expect. I think my boys are kind of the same way. Like all right. So the picture that I had when we went away to Acres of Wildlife, we were just kind of sitting around and I decided, all right, I'm ready to get a tattoo. Like I've been thinking about it for, I don't know, since college. Like I almost got a tattoo one day. There was a group of us. You may have been in the group. And
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're already, I think we were like on our way there or something.
Yeah.
And somebody didn't have money to get a tattoo or whatever the case was.
I think they were like, I don't know if they weren't closed because we went in there like, no, we just can't. Yeah. I think probably the fact that we had like 10 guys all trying to walk in at an appointment or something.
Yeah. Whatever the case was, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And so, but since then, I've had it on my mind. Like, but my whole issue is I don't know what I want to put on my body forever. But now I'm at a point where I don't really care. I'm married, hopefully forever until I die. And as long as she's not upset with it, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I was joking.
So you probably shouldn't get like another girl's like name or portrait on there. That probably would not be.
Spell her name. Spell Candy's name wrong. No, but I was joking, half joking, when I had said, or I was like, you know what I want to get? I figured it out. I want to get a tattoo of a unicorn having sex with a donkey. And they're just like, what? And so while I was there, I drew a picture of a unicorn having sex with the donkey. And it's a great picture. I've actually I uploaded it, and I've got to like work with it on the digital thing to add some color and stuff to it. But I definitely showed one of my sons that. He's like, "Oh my god!" And it's not graphic. It's like it. Let's be
No,
clear,
it
but-
is the most graphic possible.
I mean, just imagine what it looks like for a unicorn to be having sex with a donkey. It's not graphic at all. It's a beautiful scene,
Yeah.
really. Actually, I shared it on Telegram. I don't know. Are you on that beta group?
No.
No, you'll have to get on it. Or not. Totally up to you. But yeah, so that's the tattoo that I am not actually going to get, but it was on my mind.
Now you have me picturing all like thinking about all the filthiest ways you could, like, here's a unicorn and a donkey that are into water sports, or like,
Oh God. No, see, not graphic.
Here's
Pat.
here's a dominatrix unicorn. And which one was the unicorn? First of all, was it like a male, female, or
Oh, you couldn't tell.
couldn't tell?
I mean, the donkey could have been female, could have been male. I don't judge.
Okay.
I don't think about those things when I draw fictional.
Fictional animals having sex.
Yeah. Speaking of donkeys, though, so we play Dungeons and Dragons every Sunday.
Yep.
And when the whole group's not there, we'll play Warhammer, or the person who runs the game will play Warhammer with whoever is there. So Dominic and I were the only ones there, and so we played Warhammer. First time we'd ever played. It was really cool because we got to just hang out together and play this game. So throughout the course of the game, though, long story short, we had to transport some donkeys from one place to another place. Got into some fights along the way, lost some donkeys, and one of the last places where we had the fight and had our remaining donkeys, I was almost dead, couldn't do any fighting at all, and was huddled up. So we were kind of like circled up in the donkeys, and it was pitch black because we couldn't start a fire, and wolves were circling where we were. So I was a genius, and I let loose one of the donkeys to kind of draw off the wolves. So one of the donkeys goes off, and the wolf comes out and attacks. He misses. The donkey kicks him, scares off the wolf. So then the fight's going on and stuff. And then another wolf comes in, misses the donkey. The donkey kicks him, scares off the other wolf. And then the fight gets done. The donkey comes back. And I was all excited. I was like, this is awesome. We're not getting rid of this donkey. Like, we're going to keep this donkey. It is now Battle Donkey. And we're laughing about that. Like, no. That's not a good name. Battle Mule. Like, we'll call him Battle Mule. And then Dominic, my son, is a genius. He's like, no, Battle Ass. It's like, yes, that is definitely a name for it. So I'm super excited to play with our new character, Battle Ass, in the upcoming Warhammer games.
Very cool. Maybe you should get Battle Ass as your tattoo.
That's not a bad
So are
idea.
you going to go with the donkey and unicorn having sex tattoo?
No.
No.
I'm not
You decided not to do this. So the tattoo is still undecided then?
Yeah, it's no. Yes, it's definitely undecided. I don't know what I'm gonna get. I think I'm gonna get I want to get some sort of sacred geometry. And I was thinking about it while I was there or someplace else, and I saw somebody else with, do you know much about sacred geometry, like the different images? Oh, there's one that's kind of like it looks like a half circle and it's got a spiral on it, and it looked all right, but it's like just very plain. I'd like to get something a little bit more elaborate, maybe like a flower of life or something with a little bit of expansion. I don't know, but I have at least a path of where I want to go.
Yep.
And get. So yeah.
How about for one of our segment ideas, we come up with tattoo designs for each other and get tattoos?
We could give each other tattoos.
There you go. We'll go straight. We'll learn how to give prison tattoos.
I know Freddie. Freddie has some prison tattoos.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know. I don't think they're prison tattoos.
But
technically,
homemade
they're certainly
tattoos,
homemade
yes, yes.
tattoos. So
There
we'll
you
get him in
I think
here.
that's a great idea for a
That's-
segment.
the next guest.
Yeah.
That'll do it. All right, so let's go to the reviews.
Okay.
The Man Nobody Knew. Have you seen it? No,
I have not.
probably not. I like to look for documentaries when I'm just kind of like doing work or something at home as kind of background.
Mhm.
And this one I actually got really interested in. Like I get interested in all the documentaries, not all of them. A lot of the documentaries I picked to watch, but this was about William Colby, and he was director of the CIA just before during Richard Nixon. Like he got
Okay.
sworn in just after the Vietnam War, or during the just after the Vietnam War, but during the Vietnam War. Have you ever heard of the
Vietnam War, yes.
Have you ever heard of Vietnam? It's, the Phoenix program, I think
No.
it's called. So basically, he ran that, and what that was a CIA operation, and in short, they basically just they would get intelligence from people in the villages, not the Viet Cong, the Vietnamese, for the Viet Cong, and like hunting those people down. So somebody would say, "Hey, this guy's a bad person," and so they would go out and kill them.
Mhm.
And it wouldn't necessarily be like a straight up kill; like they'd interrogate people and torture them, and
Yep.
they have footage. It's not like it's a hidden thing.
Yeah.
Apparently, Vietnam was not a great place to
Yeah,
be during the
yes.
Vietnam War.
Yes.
But so it's his whole story and his like running the operation there. And he had started off as I don't know if he was the U.S. ambassador necessarily. He may have been before the Vietnam War started. So they start off talking about his relationship there, and he's just a very interesting guy because they make it very clear. And I watched some other stuff about him afterwards because I was interested. He's very much not a black and white person in the sense of he understands like it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. There's things that just need to be done. And
Yep.
like that's kind of the path he walked along.
Mhm.
But he was like a family man, a Catholic, and I guess outwardly.
Yep.
The way he's described, he was a pretty cold guy,
Yeah.
essentially. But just very interesting and you learn about him, but I felt I learned more about like the Vietnam War and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and that whole thing in the CIA and even after that, which leads to some of the questions, things I put on the list for later, like congressional hearings and all that stuff.
Mhm.
He was just an honest person, like when it came to, but honest as far as a CIA person is concerned, because
Right. Yeah.
like he realized it, and he tried to make it very clear as these congressional hearings are. Have you ever watched any congressional hearings, like modern ones?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always get annoyed when I watch it because all these congressional representatives are like with the Zuckerberg ones and all
Yeah.
that stuff. They're asking the stupidest questions in the world,
Right, yeah.
and trying to get their like airtime,
Right. And
listening.
trying to make like exactly. Have a soundbite or whatever. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And to see these older ones, it's like, oh, this has always been going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to see him like answering these questions and stuff, and it's just like basically saying, look, you can't like shut down the CIA operations because this is how we keep our country safe. Like
Right.
we have to do.
You may not like what we're doing, but it's a necessary thing to,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think one of my favorite answers he had given was one of the people were saying something about eliminations. He's like, so there are so many eliminations and all this stuff, and he's like, well, let me clarify eliminations. And he said killings. He's like, would you prefer me to say killings? And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to use euphemisms.
Right.
We killed these people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting watch. You see a little bit about his family and stuff, and apparently I didn't realize there was there, after watching that, I didn't realize there was a lot of question about his death, but it makes sense that there is. He died in 96. I guess he went out on a canoe, according to his death, and the canoe was found washed up, filled with sand, and his body was found like somewhere down the river and presumed drowned or whatever. But good movie on Amazon.
Would recommend.
Prime. Would recommend. Do
Okay.
recommend. Did you finish the rehearsal?
Yes, the most recent episode.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Oh, that was the end of it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not catch that. Okay.
What'd you think?
I think I need to go back and rewatch the ending of it at least. Again, we talked about this last time. I often watch it super late at night, like in bed, and sometimes I'm like falling asleep, or sometimes I'm not always 100% sober. So I need to go back and watch it because I didn't realize the end. There were definitely some parts where I laughed out loud during this one. Because you had mentioned before there were some times where you laughed out loud at it previously. I hadn't really. Mine was kind of more of like a, not necessarily confused, but sort of just like interested in where it was going and sort of like lightly amused by it.
Mhm.
But this one actually had like the part where they were at the party and he had all extras so they couldn't talk. Like that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I thought it was. I liked it. The end of it was just like it got that really weird thing, and that's where it kind of turns into the. All right, so this is got to be fake at this point,
Right.
Like
It got a little more absurd as it
Yeah.
went along. Like when he had the adult playing the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall entertainment value. Yeah, I liked it. I think the shows. I mean, I like that kind of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
The absurd stuff and.
I'm definitely a fan of that, like kind of absurdist comedy. Like, what's the one? It's on
Monty
Netflix. No, the guy on Netflix. He was from SNL. I can't believe I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, a lot of my favorite like SNL sketches are the ones like Kyle Mooney or somebody would do at the end where they got like progressively more and more absurd, but they stuck with it.
Right.
Like I don't know, I just kind of appreciate that kind of humor. It's not I wish you would. Is it I wish you would leave with?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The one it's Tim.
Tim, yeah. Like I appreciate that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah, that and remember, did you ever watch Tim and Eric?
some, yeah.
So that kind of stuff. Kids in the Hall.
Yep, Kids in the Hall.
Which have you watched the new ones?
I have not watched all of them, but I've watched a number of them. I really actually enjoy it. One of the things that I love about Kids in the Hall is how they always bring things back around. That like the callbacks to earlier sketches or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I mean, they are pretty genius guys there.
Yeah, and they've lasted forever. It's so cool to see, like, again, older than us.
Yeah.
Like still putting that stuff together. And where they've been around for so long as like a comedy troupe, they've got a lot to fall back on.
Yeah.
Like so one of their sketches in one of the earlier episodes, it's like the fake girlfriend cheating on him with his best friend.
Yeah.
So I was looking that up on YouTube and found like an old stage sketch of that.
Really? So that's cool. So they took something they had done way back in the day, and then that was a good one. So I definitely have been enjoying the reruns of that. I think at some point I need to go back and watch Brain Candy as well, because that's a movie that I remember loving. Although like, a lot of stuff I've read about it since the new Kids in the Hall came out was talking about how it wasn't very good, and they even mentioned how like it was a bomb, on the show and everything. But I remember loving it, and
Yeah, I mean,
so
I
go back and watch it too.
Yeah, I gotta watch it too. I think it's one of those movies that I was 18, 19, 20 whenever I watched it, so maybe I'm in a different level.
Right, so it may not be quite the same when you go back. And,
right.
Yeah.
And I was probably, no, because I feel like they came out in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was gonna say maybe I was drunk or something, but no, I wouldn't have been because I didn't do that in school. But yeah, and like movies like I don't know any of the like Basketball and Orgasmo, like those types of movies. I definitely watched those at a different point.
Not
in my
sure
life.
that they would quite
right. Maybe
hit you the same way as they did back then.
And I have such a short attention span now for a lot of movies that it'd be easy for me to drop off. And then the only other one on here, have you the Jurassic Park franchise?
The only Jurassic Park movie I've seen is the first one.
You're probably better off for it. That's the review.
Yeah, there you go.
So on to the news.
Okay. Yes. What do you have in the news here?
What's new with us? What is this?
That's not. News and so you got me confused between news and headlines.
Yeah, I probably could have mixed those two. Well, I mean, the headlines is underneath the news.
Right. And I'm not saying we should skip to headlines. It's just that news. What's new with us? I guess is news.
Yeah.
News about us.
All right. So movement class. I think I'm finally ready to. I definitely am ready to start teaching a movement class, a basic movement class.
Okay.
Which will focus. It's something I've been thinking about for a while because I work with somebody at work, and he had like hip problems and stuff, and so I would start like, try this stretch and stuff, and I started experimenting with.
Was it unsolicited? Like, did you come up and just start like,
hey,
help you out with
that? It was weird at first, but HR didn't mind.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so and during that time I was like working on stretches and stuff on my own, just because I had this knot on the rhomboid muscle, and I couldn't really get rid of it. I was going to like give massages and stuff which would temporarily work it, but I eventually kind of figured out just on my own how to stretch and move around it, and then I started changing my posture and all this stuff, and working with this other guy, kind of giving him ideas. Like he came down the other day, it was funny, and he just comes down to my cube and he's like, all right, so and he's like bending over, he's like it's like I try to bring my touch my hands to the ground and all this stuff, and I'm looking at him and I see his back's like arched up a little bit, and I was like, all right, well, try just when you're down there focus on bending just at your hip, and then extend your neck out and kind of straighten out your back, and now bring it down slowly. He's like, oh yeah, this feels awesome. I actually have a smile on my face now. He's like, this is why I came down here. So I'm gonna start taking that out. And there's another guy I work with who he's like good at circus stuff, like handstands, all the stuff I want to get good at. We had talked about putting a class together, like building up a series of up to an advanced class, but I just want to do a beginner class now, get my feet wet with it. And I've taught before, like karate and stuff. So that's my next.
So so this is totally ignorance of this, but like, so if you're going to teach a class like that, do you need some kind of like certification, or you can just be like,
yeah, I mean, so you can teach whatever you want to teach. Like people are probably going to come to you if you have some sort of certification. That sounds awful the way it says. Yeah, whatever. You could be a doctor if you want to be a doctor,
right?
Like, but no, I mean, especially when it comes to things like that aren't like a real science. Like, obviously, working with the body and stuff is there are sciences around that.
So is there like liability there? Let's say you're working with somebody and then they claim, oh, you made my back issue, you injured me.
If I was really, really worried about that, then yeah, I would. But where I'm at, what I would be teaching like is basically like an introduction. So it's like when I taught karate, I taught kids karate and all that stuff. And at those places, they had had to sign, during their sign up, probably
Yeah,
signed
sign a
liability
waiver,
waivers and all
yeah.
that stuff. But although I don't remember signing a waiver when I took karate, maybe I just didn't really pay attention to it at all. But I think
So you
people are typically better than that. Like I can't imagine somebody coming in and to a basic movement class where I'm literally like, all right, guys, like here are your hips, here's your, these are the things you want to work with, posture and all that stuff. For people who really are introducing themselves into any sort of physical fitness whatsoever. And I'd probably like start, be very clear with, hey, this is your body.
Yeah, just handwrite something. I acknowledge that Andre has had no formal training. He is entirely self-taught, and that I am putting myself at risk by working with him.
Exactly, which is in line with, I just read about this guru, very popular. I can't remember his name, Jagi something, but he's got like this, what a lot of people call a cult. And but there's a lot of people who in the Indian culture, the yogi Indian culture, who hate this guy basically because it's not like traditional. He doesn't follow the traditional things. He hasn't read any, like he's very upfront, like, oh, I've never read this, that, the other, and you don't need to, and all this stuff. So which is, I think it's just funny because I'm like kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, but I think it'll be fun. Something new. And
you're making me very self-conscious about my posture, which I know I have terrible posture. So
we'll work on that.
Yeah, I can be one of your first clients.
But yeah, and we already talked about the podcast analytics.
I'm just impressed that we have somebody that's actually watched it. Besides like you and I, and Bubba,
23 other people,
and probably most of them are not related to us, which is
good.
Maybe one or two.
Yeah, maybe so.
I haven't really spread the word in my family.
I know, and I don't know if this counts in your analytics because this was from our first episode, but I have friends that have watched our Monster Squad episode and were really impressed by it. So.
That is not up there, so it's not in the analytics.
So we can add a few more.
Yeah, this is strictly YouTube. So let's jump down to yours.
Well, hold on. Opinions on racism.
Oh, yeah.
You're pro racism, right?
Yeah. I think there's a clear line.
We need more racism in the world. I am pro racism.
No, I was at I ended up in a conversation with somebody. We were drunk, and
despite you saying earlier you do not drink as much.
As much, yes. And he I don't remember how the topic came up, but basically it come out of his mouth, and he was trying to say that racism doesn't exist anymore, and I was like, what are you talking about? And it's like, we got Obama in the odds. Like, that means nothing.
In fact, that just further created issues.
So apparently there are people out there who believe that racism does not exist, which is crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then shortly after that, I had I listened to WGAN, the conservative talk radio, and that's not because I am a conservative person. It's because I like talk radio. I don't like NPR. I don't have many options after that. So, and I'll switch back to NPR when I get a little annoyed with the conservative side, and then I start getting annoyed with NPR. And but there's like some book that was being advertised on GAN. It's like Uncle Tom or something like that. But basically, from the ad of the book, it was that same sentiment, that like it's all been a lie that's been fed, that Black people have it bad in America. And what are you people pushing here? Yes, there are definite problems in America, especially with race. I don't know how you can try to lie about that. There's no argument. It's just, if you're saying that, you're either willfully ignorant
Yeah.
or no, that's it.
Right.
How about you? How do you feel about racism?
I am pro.
Okay.
Not pro racism.
You are wearing a black and white shirt, so that proves right
yes,
there that.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it blows me away when people can't acknowledge that there is. I mean, it's like some people, and it's that whole thing too, where if you're criticizing America, it means you hate America. Like no, you should be able to, accept what are the positives and what are the negatives, and how do you, if you can't accept or identify negatives, how do you improve that? You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, and I think it's hard too. Like, you talk about, and I know these are like, hot button buzzwords, but things like privilege and things like that. Yeah. Somebody like me has probably not seen or experienced a whole lot of racism in our country. So I think there are some people like that just assume because it hasn't directly impacted them, they don't necessarily see it. I think people also, again, another one is systemic racism, but a lot of the racism that goes on in our country is that systemic racism kind. And a lot of, that's the one that blows me away, that people are unable to kind of recognize that, you can trace it back, like the socioeconomic status of people, like all that traces back to racism and racial segregation and all that stuff. But yeah, people that can't accept that or see that, it's just,
well, it's just like, and I want to be perfectly clear about this. Like, one of the things that makes it difficult for me to talk about racism or anything like that is, in my life and where I live, it's not the same as like somebody else. Like when we talk about the Black Lives Matter movement and all that stuff, I get frustrated with a lot of people like really pushing the Black Lives Matter movement around here, because here is not where that's like a big thing. We have other things to worry about than Black Lives Matter. We should be aware and continue to be like culturally aware. But I think like Westbrook, for example, is a pretty diverse place. I've said it before. We've gotten a lot better at that. And I think recently there was at the end of last year, there's like a middle school protest at our middle school here, because a kid got taken out of the Westbrook Community Days, Westbrook Together Days. That's it. Which is just a little community festival. He was black. He got taken out of there because of a fight. Like, he got into a fight and whatever. And then it turned into this like whole racial profiling thing. It's like, I don't know. If it were that bad, you would see a lot more than this. Like, to a point, if you're going to go and do a protest and march on the streets, about police action. Let's talk about different police action than that, because you can see it from white people, like the way they treat homeless people, the way they treat, I'm not saying the Westbrook police are bad. What I'm saying is, like, there are other issues to get up in arms about, other than this thing that, it's a big deal in other places where there's people dying and like literally need to be told that Black Lives Matter. But I get frustrated with that. That's all. So it's hard for me to like talk, like when you talk about privilege and all that stuff, like I, in a sense, have that privilege. Like, I have dealt with racism, but not usually an overt racism. Like, it's more of a subtle racism that it's kind of funny. Like, it's funny, Malcolm X talked about it in the sense, the differences in racism between the South and the North. Like, where in the South, I can't remember how we put it specifically, but off the top of my head, but basically in the South, the wolves are like growling at you or whatever.
Yeah, it's more overt. It's more in your face kind
Yeah,
of thing.
and in
Yeah.
the North, in New England, it's like they're smiling,
Mhm.
at that point. So
Yeah.
it's just
Well, in Portland, it was a big story in their school system because they had, they did like a data review and it showed that Black students were getting suspended or getting, in trouble more than white students or more than other races of students. And especially when you account for the percent of the population. And for me, again, I'm a school teacher. So for me, my thought about that is, I think some people look at that and they say, oh, they're racist. The school's racist and how they're treating their Black students. But for me, I'm like, well, there's going to be a lot more to that. Like, if kids are actually doing, I want to see what were these kids suspended for?
Mhm.
Were they getting in fights? Were they and then, so what's the issue and how does race play a part of that? Is it because of, are white students who are doing the same offenses being treated differently?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, okay, then that's pretty bad. We got to deal with that. Or is it, socioeconomic status playing a role in there? Is it because of, there are cultural or community factors that influence those things? And so which isn't to say it's not a problem that Black students are being suspended at a higher rate,
Mhm.
but it's not just as simple as, oh, those teachers and principals are racist. It's, no, this is a bigger, more systemic
Right.
issue that we need to look at. And I think sometimes it's, oh, we need to get rid of those principals and get new ones in. Well, not necessarily. It's, we gotta go find the root causes of a lot of these things, and then it becomes a much harder issue to deal with. It's much easier to say, oh, the staff members are racist or whatever, than it is that, we have some systemic big cultural issues in our country that are causing a lot of these things. So
absolutely.
but anyway, that's all right. And then if we can go to the last one, you want to go to Five Guys. So that's a good transition from racism to.
And I think Five Guys is welcome in all races, and that's why I want to go to Five Guys.
There you go.
Now, I was talking to Jacob the other night. We did a show, and
Have you never been to Five Guys?
I've been to Five Guys. I've had their fries. I may have had a burger there once in the past, but I think we've talked about it before. I'm not a big burger person, at restaurants, just because I don't like condiments or anything like that.
Okay.
And as I was explaining to Jacob, I always get worried that I'm going to order a burger, and what my definition of a burger is without lettuce, tomatoes, and all that is not what their definition is. I'm going to get it, and I don't want to ask because I've been burnt in the past, and now I'm just like, you know what, whatever. I'm not going to get a burger, and I'll be fine with that. Jacob was explaining to me, no, at Five Guys, you just tell them what you want, and they will put exactly what they want. That's how they do it. And he was describing this grilled jalapeno. He says he likes to get a grilled jalapeno and bacon. And maybe there wasn't bacon, but bacon sounds good too. But anyway, whatever he was describing sounded delicious. So I was like, well, if they do it that way and I can trust it, then I'm going to go ahead.
So what would be your perfect burger then?
So let's see. There's cheese. I'm going to do a double. Do they have triples, I wonder?
Jacob said they will do anything.
Yeah, I mean, if they do a triple, remember the Quadzilla?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'll go quadruple.
You could do it. I used to do the fried chicken patty
Mm.
and the burger. The things that I would eat in college are absolutely disgusting to me now. But
Well, so yeah, I would do. Let's just say, no matter the number of patties, cheese, the grilled jalapenos, bacon, and I think he said barbecue sauce.
then you do barbecue sauce.
Yeah, like a rodeo cheeseburger.
Okay, so it's not all condiments. It's just
Yeah.
the ketchup, mustard.
Right, and I had to explain when I was telling Jacob, I'll go to McDonald's, I'll go to Burger King, and I know that they have those things on it. I know they have pickles, I know they have chopped onions, I know they have ketchup, I know they have mustard. When I was a little kid, I would always order none of that stuff.
Yeah, the plain.
Yeah, absolutely plain. And then I think people started getting me, like when my parents would get it and they wouldn't ask for that, or they'd forget. Then I like accidentally eat it, and it's like, all right, I can take it down, and now I like it. You know, it's fine. But I'm not gonna put that on. Like when I make burgers at home or anything, I barely use a bun. Actually, when I have burgers at home, I just kind of eat the meat and cheese and call it good. Unless I make a pineapple cheeseburger, like that's really good. I put like a pineapple
You
ring.
grill the
Yep.
pineapple. Yeah,
Well, I don't grill the pineapple. I just put I should do that,
that'd be good.
but I put the pineapple on top of the burger, or sometimes I'll put the cheese on top of the pineapple, top of the burger. But
Okay.
that's good.
All right. I say we skip my what's new with us because, to be honest, I don't really want to talk about school anymore.
Oh, fair
We had our
enough.
first day back today. I already talked about how we wanted to go for. Oh no, that was before we started. I wanted to go for oysters and they were closed.
Oh yeah.
That's my new thing. Is that all restaurants for some reason are closing on Tuesdays,
Hmm.
and I think that the restaurants should like strategically work together to rotate like which ones are open.
That would make sense.
Because we were going to go to the shop and they were closed on Tuesdays. Then we were going to go to, I think, Boda and they were closed on Tuesdays. So, like, every place we wanted to go.
So, well, let's go back to that because this week was your anniversary week.
Well,
Like when you were speaking,
last
that was-
Friday was, but this is the last week before school started today, not with kids, but
Mhm.
we had to be back. So, and usually this week, as we're kind of leading into,
Oh yeah.
we start doing like, we're going to go out to breakfast one day. We're going to go get oysters because that's something we enjoy. We're going to do those things. And then it got kind of ruined.
But not on Tuesday.
Not on Tuesday.
Were you able to do Monday and Wednesday?
Monday we went and got sushi at a place where we down in the community we teach in, because I had students give me gift cards to the sushi restaurant, which was awesome, and that's why I had teacher gifts on there.
Mhm.
Because I think I may have ranted about this before, but like, give good teacher, like the teacher gifts that I get, like I don't want, you know, some of them it's like, oh, you got to get a teacher gift here, let's grab this, and you know, I don't want like a little wooden apple that says world's #1 teacher or something on it, or you know, a lot of the things I get are like I've had people give me I don't know, manicure thing, like which is fine. There are a lot of men that like getting manicure, but like yes, I'm saying that as I have painted nails on right now. But like that's just an example. Like I get a lot of gifts that I would say when they were created were probably not created for men. Not to be stereotypical, but you know, so it's just like or just give me like a nice note, like an actual heartfelt note being like, hey, my kid really enjoyed your class. Thank you so much for all your hard work. That would be better than
Right.
you know, some of the
I hear you on that. Like with the notes, if somebody's gonna give me a garbage gift, that sounds like I don't appreciate gifts. I appreciate,
and that's how I mean I don't want to sound that way either, but like
if you're not gonna put thought into a gift, and if you're not gonna put thought into a gift, I don't know why you would write a nice note. So why would I expect that? But I would prefer just like a nice note or something.
And the point of this is not you need to get your teacher a gift.
Yes,
That's
it
not
is.
what
Get
what
your
I'm
teacher a
trying to
gift.
say.
Even if they're crap.
It's exactly what you're saying. If you're gonna give a gift, at least put a little bit of thought into it. Or like I said, a note would be really nice, just saying, you know, honestly how you appreciated the work that I did.
Yeah.
It'd be great. But anyway, we had a great sushi dinner thanks to a couple of my students. So it was a really thoughtful thing. I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty shameless now and being like, well, I always tell them I like sushi. Like that's just one of the things of, you know, I try to have the kids get to know me and stuff. And so I push that a lot. And like we play games at the end of the year, like, you know, how well do you know your teacher kind of stuff. But like so I get a lot of chocolate as gifts. That's like a common teacher gift. So as I've gotten older, my sweet tooth has gotten, it's changed. I like really bitter, like dark chocolates now. And I can't like milk chocolate. I can't even eat. It's too sweet. So now I'm like really clear with the kids. Oh yeah. Dark chocolate. You know, I just find any excuse to bring it up. And it works. Like kids give me.
I just had an idea. I was about to say a brilliant idea. In my head it is. But what if you had like every year at the beginning of the year, you put like a poster board or something, something big enough that the kids can see, and you just, it's like, what I want to give Mr. Conley. And then throughout the year, like
Yep.
they write down their gift ideas, and then you
Nice.
put like yay or nay next to it.
I think what I should do is, so usually we get gifts at 2 times during the year. One is Christmas, and then one's the end of the year.
Mhm.
And so I think what I need to do is at Christmas time, I should, because usually I try to kind of open gifts when the kids are out at recess or something, and then do a little thank you note to the kid or whatever, or at least talk to them about how, oh, I loved your gift, thank you so much, whatever. I think what I need to do is put all the gifts on my center table, make all the kids sit and watch me open each one. And if it's like a gift, like, oh, this is junk, like really play it up, or like, oh, this is the best gift ever, and really shame those
I
kids.
think, yeah.
And then at the end of the year, I maybe that'll pay off with them getting me like,
That, yeah, you prime them.
Yep.
Like you get them to recognize, all right, this is what, yeah.
I think that's
Maybe your idea is better.
All right. You want to do headlines?
Yeah, let's shoot through the headlines. Well, let's see. We only got,
I was gonna say it's
we've been running for a bit, so yeah, let's do one headline.
I have a headline I would like to do.
All right.
So this is a local headline, but it's also something going on around the country. Banning books.
Yes.
I'm interested in your take on this. So in Buxton, it's been in the news this week because the school board had a meeting where parents were trying to get 2 books banned from the school libraries, middle school library. There were 2 books they were talking about. One is called It's Perfectly Normal, and it's basically like a sex education book. And it talked about all kinds of stuff, but their biggest things were that it had talked about homosexuality, and it also had pornographic images and things like that in there. There was brief mention of oral sex and anal sex, and then there were some pictures. I have pictures. I actually did some research and looked up illustrations, so I can share with you what it looks like. And the other book is one that was in the news earlier in the summer because it actually got banned in another town in Maine called Gender Queer, and it's like a memoir of somebody in their gender identity and sexuality kind of awakening and experiences.
What was the first one called?
It's called It's Perfectly Normal. So they had this meeting. Parents, obviously, some spoke out in favor of it, some spoke out against it. But the school board decided, and this is probably a good idea, is that they were going to go back and actually read the book before making any judgments on it. And so just curious, what I certainly have kind of some thoughts about it, but I thought it might make for an interesting discussion on where we kind of fall on those things.
So
yeah, you're seeing some of the images there.
this is it.
This is It's Perfectly Normal.
And it's in a middle school book.
And middle school books. It was a middle school library. I just is doing a little bit of background on it. I went to Common Sense Media. I don't know if you're familiar with that website, but they are an organization that they do a lot of different things. They do a lot of educational stuff. But one of the things that they do is provide information from parents and making judgments about movies and books and video games and all kinds of things. And they kind of go into detail about what's in there in different categories like sex, violence, all those things. And I find it to be, I use it a lot for school, and I find it to be a pretty fairly balanced resource. Like there's a lot of things on there that I look at. I'm like, oh, I would show my kids, but they say, 12 and my daughter's 9 or whatever.
Right.
They said for this book, 12 plus, which would be right at that middle school, kind of like 7th, 8th grade level.
This is a girl, I assume.
Yeah. Taking a look at her anatomy.
Why is okay? So I'm going to describe the picture. So the first picture I said, this is a girl. I'm assuming is just a picture of a girl bent over, and you're seeing it's a drawing of,
Yes.
of a girl bent over,
Yeah.
and she's viewing her vagina and her butthole, I guess, with a mirror. I mean, you see them both. And then there's another, which I understand. I mean, that picture makes sense in a book about puberty and things about being normal. That's what people do.
And we taught, I taught 5th grade for a long time. We did human growth and development, and so we taught about anatomy, and we certainly had big diagrams that aren't much different than that. I mean,
Really?
they weren't necessarily cartoon pictures of people; they were more like diagrams, but that had different genitalia and labeled and all that.
Okay. And then there's a picture of a guy combing his hair, and he's just not bent over, like leaning over as he combs his hair, and he's naked, and he's got his butt sticking out. And I don't know what the purpose of that picture is, though, like because there's a
I
black
think
circle.
they're probably showing anatomy, just because, again, my experience, they're probably showing how this is where the man's anatomy is from the back. Like they also have an anus and, things like that.
That makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like an appropriate image of it, and I can't think of anything more or less appropriate than that. It's not, you have unedited versions. I mean, look at that. let me see the good stuff.
See if I can. There you go. They also have a few other.
Okay. So
they also have some images of masturbation where they show a male and a female masturbating, but they're not super graphic. Again, they're cartoon images. They're relatively like zoomed out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like, it's not like they're showing a whole lot. And then they also have a number of images of intercourse. And so they have like male and female. There's some that are two females, some that are two males. And again, they don't show penetration, but they're clearly naked people in a bed together in a compromising position, but they're not showing.
So, okay. I'm not a fan of banning books, period. Like, I think that books that are appropriate for the age of the child should be in the school. So I wouldn't want to see that book necessarily in a kindergarten library without context. Like if you got it in the kindergarten library in a section called, hey, we're going to talk about sex, and you've got like actual education going on with it versus just kind of slapping it around and letting kids pick it up and have their own conversations about it without any pretext, I think that's a different story. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm saying it's a different story, which is such a easy way out of conversations. I don't, for that book there in middle school, because in middle school you're learning sex ed, like you should be. I shouldn't say you should be. You typically are learning sex education, and there's nothing in there that is not sex education. Like you're seeing pictures of the anatomy. There's text going along explaining, and it's really a far more palatable visual depiction of it than watching the Miracle of Life movie.
Right.
Like that was a lot for me to take in as a 7th grader or 8th grader. I think it was 7th
watching
grade.
that. Yep.
And that's been around forever. Like that was an old movie. And if you haven't seen The Miracle of Life, check it out.
Yeah.
But that is super graphic, and and maybe there are schools and stuff that have banned showing that, but I don't know how like books get on parents' radar so much as opposed to other things. I mean, if you're, for especially that book, or I don't think there's any reason. Like Catcher in the Rye, for example, was a book that's banned in different places. I was having a conversation with Candy about that. Have you read that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I had never read it before. Finished it a couple weeks ago, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, I really don't understand why this is a banned book. Until I got to the end, I was like, I can see probably why educators wouldn't want that banned. I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody, but I can see why educators wouldn't want, but where there may be a problem, like, we don't want this in our school.
Yeah.
but I don't think it should be banned because it's a good book. And I think it, and not to say it's a good book because I enjoyed it. I think it, if you're growing up or even if you're all grown up, like
Mhm.
it's a perspective on life that I think is probably, it may be relatable to some kids who
Yep.
don't see that perspective throughout their life. And or it's a perspective on life that isn't relatable to some kids, and it
Yep.
gives a different perspective. That's kind of the beauty of books and stories and all of that, and different characters. And especially when it comes to sex ed stuff, I mean, yeah, there's no reason. I did hear a good argument, not for banning books, but because I heard a news story about it this morning on WGAN, where like they had a soundbite from, it may have been somebody representing the school or something, that was basically saying it was two parents or that were complaining about it, and they're making a decision. It's like, it's our job to make a decision for all the kids, and like if we if we take these out,
Right.
we're addressing two parents' kids versus all the other ones.
Right.
Like, we're making that decision for all the other kids too. So
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff like that where the vocal minority, sways how things are done, and I think that's hard. People, don't want to have to deal with that. Those are the people putting pressure on the school boards or on, and it's obviously not just with schools, but with a lot of things where, people cave into that when the majority of people probably don't feel that same way. I mean, we're even seeing some of that with like abortion rights, where according to polls, the majority of Americans feel one way, but and I'm not going down that road, but I'm just saying that happens a lot of things. I agree with you with this particular book. I think, coming as an educator who's taught human growth and development, obviously to a younger age level, I mean, schools are already being tasked with teaching, about human growth and development, about sex education. And to me, this book is an educational book. I do think that, some of those pictures might be a little bit questionable, but I think for the most part, they're not really. Like, they're done in a fairly tasteful way. They're not what I would consider pornographic or anything like that. They certainly could have been much more vulgar. I think so anyway, that I guess doesn't carry too much weight with me. I think, talking to kids about, what sex is, what oral sex is, I think that's important because, in order to have safe sex, in order to protect them, kids need to know what those things are. The whole idea that kids aren't going to find out if we don't, if we ban this book, they're not going to know what those things, it's kind of ridiculous, especially in today's world where, even at home, if they're like, you can't use the internet, they're going to have kids that have phones that they're going to see that stuff. And so it's better to do it in a way that's at least providing information and education than just doing whatever. The other part of it is, some of the parents were saying it's promoting homosexuality and things like that. And obviously to me, that argument doesn't carry weight either. And I think we're sensitive to that as teachers because of, some of the laws that are passed down in Florida and things like that. They're banning the discussion of it. And it's like, we've got so many kids that have families where, they have parents that are gay, or, they're already, even at our age, there are kids that are clearly dealing with sexual identity types of things. And so in middle school, it's obviously going to become even more of an issue for a lot of kids. And so we need to, that's my take on it. One of the arguments that the school district was making is these are not books that are being taught as part of the curriculum. They're just in the library.
Okay. That
parents in this district do have the ability, if they know these books exist, and I guess the devil's advocate would say, how do parents know these books are there? But once a parent does, they can put that book on a list and say, my kid's not allowed to check that book out, so that it's still available for families that want it available for their kids. And then there's a layer. Now, of course, it's easy to get around that because I can say, Andre, can you check that book out for me?
Right, yeah.
But, so anyway, this book I don't think is a big deal. The other book I want to run by you, because this is the other book they talked about. This is a book called Gender Queer. And again, it's about somebody's experience. It's a memoir about their experience growing up. And so this is one of the scenes in that book?
I'll describe this. It's just somebody giving oral sex, fellatio.
Yep.
That means,
And then,
look it up.
and then down below, it's somebody with a strap-on receiving oral sex.
Oh, I didn't realize that's a strap on.
I think in the first one, I'm imagining it's like this, but this is the reality, and it's not nearly as.
Okay.
Now, and one thing I would say is we're doing probably exactly what we shouldn't be doing, which is taking excerpts out of this whole book without reading. So I think that's important to recognize as well. But this, to me, this book's a little bit different, and then the other book. I'm not saying I'm necessarily for banning it.
Mm-hmm.
This is one where the person's basically talking about how they masturbate in the book. But
That's how you do that.
Yeah. So this one, again, going to like Common Sense Media, the audience is 16 plus.
Mhm.
And this is kind of somebody going into, I think, a little bit more detail about their own sexual experiences and that sort of thing. So I think there might be a little bit more legitimate argument, because what you said was, I have no problem with these books being there as long as it's at an appropriate age. So I think that one, it's more for me a debate of, is this something that should be available for middle school students to be looking at, or should it be a little bit? Now, I lean towards not banning books in general. So
Yeah.
But
So with that one, so that's a memoir, right? And
Mhm.
it's just a graphic novel memoir. So it kind of I think about it in terms of kind of what you were saying of what's available to kids and everybody. Anyway, you like look on Netflix, the shows that are come out for teens,
Mhm.
like marketed towards teens, I watch it and feel very uncomfortable.
oh, my daughter's watching all those shows. Oh yes.
And the reason I say I feel uncomfortable watching it is because these are like depicted as kids who are having sex and all that stuff. Like, should I be watching this? Like type thing.
Well, like Sex Education. I don't know if you've seen that show.
No.
It's one of our favorite shows that's out right now. But yeah, they're all high school kids having all kinds of sex, not like any sex that anybody I knew was having in high school.
Right.
But
So I mean, that kind of stuff is out there. And again, you put that into context. I mean, I think the context is absolutely important with that, because if you're just seeing it in a TV show and it's just there to stimulate you, then that's a different context. Or pornography, that's a different context. Then it's a memoir, and this is that person's experience, and the reason for writing that memoir and sharing that experience is to take away from that alienation feeling that a lot of kids feel. And it's obvious that sentiment that would make those kids feel alienated is out there when people want to ban those types of books because it promotes homosexuality or it promotes.
I think a good test for it would be to say to them, okay, so we will remove this book from our library, but we're going to put in these other 20 books that all, have characters that are, LGBTQ or have, so, and then, okay, so is it, are they going to object to those books? Is it the graphic content, or is it the subject matter of, dealing with homosexuality? That's the objection there, and trying to root that out would be kind of an interesting thing. And I think too, for me, there's a harm versus benefit sort of thing that you need to weigh. Like, okay, so let's say we accept that there could be some potential harm to some of these kids in seeing this, but there's also a lot of kids that benefit, like kind of what you're saying, like that they need to see these kind of characters and dealing with these type of things, because that's what they're dealing with themselves. And we know that the suicide rates of LGBTQ kids is much higher, or teens, like those things. Like there's a lot of kids that benefit from seeing these stories being told, and so that weighs into my decision as well. But
so when you say harm, what would
I'm not saying that there's harm.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that if you were to accept these parents' arguments that it's potentially harmful for some kids, they might see this and they might go experiment with
Mhm.
these sexual things they're seeing, or
Well, guess what,
you know.
parents? They're experimenting anyway.
right, exactly, or oh, they're going to see this and it's going to turn them gay or whatever. There was actually a really good quote from a student in there that's like that was saying how in one of the articles I read that like, you hiding this book from your kid is not going to prevent them from being gay. Like they're going to be gay no matter what. They're going to be gay and not have read this book, but they're still going to be gay. So like, what's the But again, there's a lot of people who don't believe. They believe more nurture than nature and that sort of thing. And
Right.
but so I thought that was an interesting take on it.
No, yeah, that's. I'm glad you brought that to the table.
All right, so it's 10:00.
Yeah.
We probably need to wrap this up. I would propose, because I'm very interested in your ideas down there. I'd like to see what Monster Squad 2 and animated movie idea. I don't want to give it away, but and I have some other ideas. I think we could add a few more ideas from each of us. I'd like to table that one for next week. I think that'd be an interesting one to dig into. And then I also do want to get into the other segments that we could.
Yeah.
I think it would be an interesting segment to brainstorm segments that we could potentially work in as.
Maybe I can figure out a way to throw or talk about segments. We'll get our first segment song for what kind of segments.
Segment? Yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Again, we've established that I need to hear something. And then, so that's what I'll be thinking about the next week is every song I hear on the radio, I'll be like, can I turn that into a segment song?
We'll get extra medium together and crank something out. Well, have a good night.
Oh,
$1 Million Fist. Is that what you were asking?
yeah. So I think you should start plugging your.
Oh, yes. $1,000,000fist.com and Delicate Shades Laundry Soap. You can right now purchase that at La Fontaine Market on Main Street in Westbrook, Maine. All right. Bye-bye. Do you have anything to plug?
No.
No, I didn't think so. Learn stuff and figure out which mouse you're supposed to be ending the stream with.
Yeah, we got to get a little better at the endings and beginnings.